What's up, peeps? Welcome back to Viva La Coin. I'm Joe, and I will be your host on our walk down memory lane today. First and foremost, I paused the series I was doing on altcoins and the exchanges specifically because we've had an unfolding of events that we all knew was coming, but it was the impending dip based on the run up that we just recently had. Just over the past couple days, we went from a Bitcoin worth about $58,000 and we dropped down all the way to right about $44,000 at the absolute lowest. And we're hovering right now around $48,000. Now, although I already touched on a video about frequent dips in the bull market and how they wind up showing up, one thing that I didn't really get to hit home that really pisses me off is the news articles that have already come out almost simultaneously with the dip to try and spread a little bit of fear and doubt amongst anyone who would possibly dare to dabble in the crypto space. Now, this isn't something that's new, and these shitheads have been doing this for years upon years, the entire life cycle of Bitcoin. And I'm going to go back and point out a couple different instances where not only this took place, but then how those exact same people then jumped over to the other side and started buying Bitcoin because remember, the way our economic policies work is all for me, none for thee. And if I can just go ahead and make sure that I can purchase it, I'll do a better job than you can in handling it if it gets to the point that I can't shut it down altogether. Now, as we go back and revisit this, I'm actually going to first just touch on where Bitcoin's currently at. So we're actually down to about $46,000 now, which, to be honest, that's still not as bad of a dip or correction as to what I expected was going to happen. It may dip further. I am not a financial advisor, which I will continuously clarify for you. However, there are certain reasons why Bitcoin dipped. I'm not going to go into those in this specific video. This is more for when you see in the news different things pop up to sort of take it with a grain of salt or continue to do your own research, what these companies, individuals, or wealth managers are actually doing behind the scenes. I feel like it would give a lot of context as to what's going on. But where I want to start is actually with a little bit of positive news. So if you follow me on other social medias, you probably see me retweet or talk about this on Facebook or Twitter about Visa revealing their Bitcoin crypto roadmap to bring cryptocurrencies and spending to about 70 million people, which that's incredible. That's great. I'm so happy that you've always had our backs and are behind us in this race. However, that was not always the case. Now, don't get me wrong. I am not opposed to someone having a different point of view and then coming around to understanding how a certain concept works and expanding or growing a little bit and then partaking in what they once thought was fraudulent. However, whether it was Visa or some of the other people we're going to cover, they were never really a fan of Bitcoin because Bitcoin breaks the mold and moves them away from a system where they already currently have every single person by the neck. They can already control this system in the ways that they need to, whether it is from the money that is printed, how people can transact, how much you need to even open up a checking account, whether or not your credit's good enough for a loan. All these different banking organizations and transactors are all part of that same club that dislike Bitcoin because it puts the power back in your hands to be your own bank and operate in a permissionless system, so to speak. Now, with their previous concerns in the past is, well, Bitcoin won't displace MasterCard or Visa anytime soon because we can do 5,000 transactions per second. One Bitcoin takes 10 minutes. Okay, that's a valid point, but here's the fucking problem, is that credit cards aren't money. They are technology, a piece of plastic that you swipe that then moves your money that is then supposed to be backed by the real asset, which is gold. And that's a different story, how we completely took the dollar off the gold standard. However, yeah, you can do more transactions per second because you are technology. Your transacting system is just swiping that card. Go and buy a bunch of shit and go to a bunch of different retail stores. And when you go and check your bank, your PNC or your Citibank ledger, it will say transaction pending. That money doesn't disappear and then show up in the hands of the people that you paid. It does take time on their end too. They can just transact faster because they are an additional solution on top of that money that speeds it up. With Bitcoin, believe it or not, technology can have second and third layer solutions that will help speed up those transactions. Now, in this case, those second and third layer solutions that would even get it to a point where it operates with a MasterCard or a different bank would also be decentralized. So they can't be manipulated or blocked or have any sort of fraudulent manipulation from that side. And even all the way back in November, Visa started to jump back and dip their toes into Bitcoin's pool again because, it's at an all-time high, so we're going to take it seriously at this point because we failed to just scare people out of it or run it into the ground to this point because, again, it's not the US. It is a global transaction and payment and asset wealth system that no matter what we do in the US, you're not going to stop it. You can definitely hinder it temporarily, but you're not going to stop it. And they're talking about how, Bitcoin can be a virtual version of gold and could be used in transactions. So thank you for your invaluable input. Glad to have you in the game. But then we go back and we look at the banks and who are the good actors and the bad actors, most of whom fall in the latter part of those two categories. Bad actors. JP Morgan stands out more than anyone else to me, just in the fact that they will flip-flop so much. They go back and forth every other week, it seems, in their sentiment on Bitcoin, whether or not they're getting into it. And none of it has anything to do with what they believe or whether or not they see any functionality. They are just FOMOing in and out of this situation, trying to not get caught out in the cold when everything takes off. And just years ago, Jamie Dimon, or Dimon, however you want to pronounce that, he was saying Bitcoin is fraudulent, right? So he's their chief executive. And he'll go down this rabbit hole, putting out one article after the next, or at least a couple statements or doing interviews. This isn't the only one. And I find that incredibly hypocritical because isn't JP Morgan the same entity that is paying back almost $1 billion, $920 million in connection to defrauding precious metals in the US, like gold and silver, that we understand not only are they moving fraudulently, but it was put on display during the GameStop saga when people were trying to attempt the short squeeze on silver, and they are still trying to. It's apparent that they are just staring in the mirror saying, we're not fraudulent, just trying to hype themselves up to turn around and lie to someone else and tell them that they are, because they either don't understand it or they don't want you playing without them. But get a little bit of momentum, get a couple banks all excited, and JP Morgan all of a sudden earlier this year is saying Bitcoin could go to $146,000. Now, as we go back and forth between these, make sure to just stabilize your spine so you don't get whiplash with how quickly they go back and forth, because it is nonstop. And you can look up whatever articles you want, pull it up, find them. You'll see it on like CNBC. It's not like I'm just pulling these off of random Twitter thoughts or opinions. But Citibank gave a projection for 350,000. Other major banks were giving higher projections. You had massive asset managers like BlackRock and Fidelity eyeing up Bitcoin. So JP Morgan's like, well, I don't know what the fuck's going on, but sure, 146,000, bang, it's on the table. At least our clients won't leave and go somewhere else. Well, right after they released this on January 5th, 6 days later, on January 11th, Bitcoin took a massive dump. It went from about just shy of $42,000, and it dropped all the way down at its low point around $28,000. Now, at that point, you would think, well, they understand their clients are in it for the long haul when people are investing in it, and we have metrics to show why it's dipping and where it's going. Doesn't matter to them because JP Morgan might as well have dementia. So they just straight up are quoting themselves again. Bitcoin may never go above 40,000 again. They're saying they just don't have the amount of backing behind it. The institutional investing isn't there. You're just not going to be able to keep the price that high for that long, which is hilarious because right after that, Tesla, Elon Musk comes out and he's like, how about 1.5 billion? Just drops it on the table. And now the other businesses are following. And I'm sure, not a financial advisor, not a, fortune teller, but Apple, who they have their Apple wallets and could just easily turn them into crypto wallets, and $200 billion on the balance sheet, just to name one large company that may follow suit. I think that more are going to throw their hat in the ring. And then all the other competition, they're not sitting around on their hands flip-flopping back and forth. BNY Mellon comes out and they're saying, we will be your crypto custodian. We'll make sure that something that was designed for you to do completely yourself so that we don't gut you alive with fees and overdraft charges and transfer blocks and, entrance fee barriers. And now, maybe we'll just block you for a loan or block your credit if you have something with us. No, they'll be your crypto custodian and help you do something that you're intended to do for yourself, for your own stability. And then you have other large firms and companies like Morgan Stanley putting aside $150 billion in an investment arm, just in the case if they want to dabble in Bitcoin. I'll quote the CEO of BlackRock, one of the largest asset managers on the face of the earth, saying, oh, well, we've begun to dabble in Bitcoin. Well, someone that manages about $7 trillion worth of assets, dabbling is a little bit more than $50 here, $50 there. All of these companies are already setting up their infrastructures, just like Visa, who has just this in-depth roadmap, seemingly out of the blue, on how to bring everyone cryptocurrency. I'm sure it has nothing to do with, the strength of the US dollar or any hedge against where the US economy is. Everything is fine. Stocks only go up. So now that these other individuals are in the game, guess who's back? JP Morgan. Well, you know how we said it was never going above $40,000 again? Well, now we're back in the game because our clients are literally banging on our doors, keeping us up at night, wondering why the fuck they can't spend their money on the highest performing asset in human history, as everyone else is hedging their bet against a fraudulent economic system, in my non-financial advisor opinion. So you're going to see them forced to play the game. And anyone that's worried about, well, what if like JP Morgan goes and buys and owns all the Bitcoin, then they control everything? They can't. They're too late to the game. Most of the Bitcoin is already owned off the exchanges in hard wallets. They're just showing up so that they're not cashing out early. And I feel like these people aren't the ones that are going to sit at home and wait for their $600 stimulus check 9 months at a time to get by. Let's see. Yep, this is just another. JP Morgan joins the Bitcoin bandwagon. God, it is like I feel bipolar reading these stories because those were all in the span of like a month or two. But you're going to see that, whether it is with different banks or people that work in the government, oftentimes with the SEC. Janet Yellen just was saying that, yeah, I see the utility use of Bitcoin. I like it. And then went flip-flopped just yesterday and said, whoa, it uses way too much energy. Yeah, because that is what our country has been so concerned about this entire time, is everyone in the financial world completely mocked and ridiculed an electric car company whose only goal is to fix the environment, while we took ourselves out of the Paris Climate Accord, along with what other country? I think there was like Syria and Nigeria. We're just keeping great company in our decision-making when it comes to what we care about and when we care about it. Now, you may start to get a little discouraged and say, well, if everything that comes out in the mainstream news is just going to flip-flop, how will I have like any decent idea of what's going on? Well, thank your lucky stars, because we've at least had a couple good individuals in this space that have been on board and used their platform and influence just to be able to help this space grow and get a foothold in such a turbulent time. Like Mark Cuban. So Mark Cuban is, going through different interviews saying, it's like, hey, this is the early days of the internet when a lot of people thought we were crazy. You're right, Mark. A lot of people do think we're crazy, except you're not talking about yourself. Because lo and fucking behold, just years ago, you were saying, I would rather be paid in bananas than Bitcoin. And you were saying there's no chance of it to become a reliable currency. It has no real utility case. It's just not going to work. It's just more hypocrisy from people that have the luxury of being an opportunist billionaire, and they can scare everyone else out of a space a couple years ago or even last year, and then all of a sudden actually do a little tiny modicum of research and then just say, oh, well, I got a couple 100 million laying around. Let me throw my hat in the ring too. Why not? And then just to really hit home a point about who these reputable people are that you should be listening to, because remember, they're financial advisors. So don't listen to me. I don't have that title. I don't have that license. So let's go over to our highly qualified friends at the Motley Fool. So you would think that this company shouldn't even exist anymore if you do a little bit of digging on them and what most of their stock picks are and how they perform. But that's not the point of this. So here's a story by Timothy Green. Forget Bitcoin. Buy these dominant tech stocks instead. Well, you could do that. It's not the highest performing asset of all time, and it might be in a very oversaturated, overvalued stock market held up by the stimulus, but, that's all just speculation. Maybe I have no idea. But the good thing is, you could just copy and paste that. Let's just give that to Leo's son as well. Oh, I like that title. Forget Bitcoin. These tech stocks are better buys right now. I feel like Bitcoin lives rent-free in these people's heads because they put out probably 4 articles about Bitcoin a day. And I think they're more about Bitcoin speculator haters than they are about actual investing. And thank God we have a 3rd article. Forget Bitcoin. These unstoppable stocks are better buys. They always change the wording just a bit. I don't know if it's to catch some Google algorithm or to try and get their opinion out there. All of their opinions, in my non-financial advisor opinion, is absolute dog shit. But the funny thing about this is while these people are putting out this information and they're, people they're supposed to be advising or listening to them, what does the Motley Fool do? The very company that's posting these articles that they write for? Well, they announce a $5 million investment in Bitcoin because whoever actually is running these things, whoever is behind the scenes, whoever isn't speaking to you understands how important this is. So they go and they buy, more Bitcoin, and they tell you through all their different writers with their incredibly creative titles not to buy it. And I think that is completely manipulative. And then luckily, right after this, which was on February 17th, guess who's back? Good old Sean Williams. 10 reasons I'll never buy Bitcoin. Good. I hope you never buy it. And I hope the Motley Fool puts it in your retirement plan just for writing for them if you are in their 401k program, just to spite you. So you know that the majority of the wealth that you have one day is from the very thing that you publicly wrote about, never wanting to own. And I just wanted to show you a website that most people will point out that have been around Bitcoin for a while, but there's a Bitcoin obituaries page. So Bitcoin, unfortunately, rest their soul, has died 399 times. And what I mean by that is these are all the different stories and articles and fear and doubt and hit pieces that were put out about Bitcoin through the years. And they're all just consolidated into this website. So you can go back and just look at who has been immortalized as the most incorrect people to write financial articles. I think it's a great testament to exactly where we're heading, and that no matter what they say, it's not going to stop it. But what you can't let it do is stop you. Because at the end of the day, The IMF, which is one of the boards that oversees all the different banks and regulatory aspects of that, and it stands for the International Monetary Fund. But their solution for everything with the economic slowdown, the pandemic, spend as much as you can. So we've already been doing that in the United States, and you may be sitting at home and just scratching your head and wondering, well, I feel like we haven't been spending that much. I still am unemployed, even though the unemployment statistics are somewhat very positive, at least when they talk about them. Then when the reports are released, they tend to be a little bit higher than what we thought. I don't really have any savings, and a certain percentage of Americans couldn't even make a $500 payment if they had something come up this day. Or just the overall debt on our balance sheet as a country, which is like $27 trillion. And I'm sure that they know what they're doing, and they can just buy the bonds back and forth and print more money and circle it around and sell it to different countries and keep that going. But the fact that this is our fucking solution is to spend as much money as you can so that we can continue to funnel it into institutions and just prop everything up as if it's okay. Well, the entire population of this country, for the most part, is either struggling or not making ends meet. And everyone all over the world that isn't a billionaire can't even get by. 1.4 billion people on the planet are considered unbanked, and they don't even have a way to accrue any wealth or put anything away to start building a life for themselves. It's fucking bullshit. And I hope that in this dip, if you started getting in, that you didn't buy all at the top and you didn't sell low, because that's what they want. Because those same banks, those same people telling you not to buy it, they're buying it by the billions because they have a brand new world infrastructure that they still want to control, even though they're not going to be able to. So in the interim, them and all the mining pools that they're buying over the counter from, they're going to buy that, put it on an exchange, 100 times leverage, dump that shit, and try and shake you out. Do not fall for that shit. Don't read an article and say, oh, the Bitcoin dream is over, because all of a sudden it dropped like 20% for the 100th time on this parabolic run-up over the past 10 years. Do your research, pay attention, and, talk to your financial advisor. But at this point, we've seen some very qualified, reputable thoughts and opinions of different banks, and I would personally not do that. Aside from that, thanks for taking this little trip down memory lane. I'm going to continue putting out the videos for the other altcoins and the exchanges. I just thought that with the timing of everything, it was important to just set the stage for the amount of hypocrisy and corruption that you're going to see when it comes to the news stories or what people tell you to or to not do, because they want to keep you securely in the palm of their hands. If this was beneficial or helpful to, at least steer you in the right direction of maybe digging a little bit deeper, go ahead, hit like on the video, subscribe, and share it to whoever else you would like to. And at the end of the day, I can't thank you enough for joining me today on Viva La Coin.